Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a subject that's near and dear to many, New York City. And we're not just talking about the Empire State Building or Times Square. You guys sent in some incredible material about what really makes this city tick, so we're going deep.
It's a fascinating mix, that's for sure. We've got everything from the city's history as a melting pot to the challenges of its relentless pace of life.
Right. One thing that immediately jumped out was that statistic about over 800 languages spoken in New York City. 800. I mean, can you even imagine?
It's mind-boggling to think you could walk down the street and hear a dozen different languages before you even reach the corner. It's a testament to the sheer concentration of global cultures in this one place.
It's like the ultimate embodiment of diversity, and not just some recent phenomenon either, right? This goes way back.
Absolutely. Think about it. For centuries, New York has been the landing point for people from all over the world, each bringing their own language, traditions, and dreams.
It's like this incredible layering effect over generations. From the Irish fleeing famine to the Italians seeking a better life, they all left their mark on the city's fabric.
And that's what makes New York so unique. It's a city built by immigrants, shaped by their resilience, their struggles, their triumphs.
But with that much diversity, there are bound to be challenges too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do people navigate those cultural differences, the language barriers, on a daily basis?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something that plays out in both big and small ways every single day.
Like, imagine trying to order a coffee when you don't speak the language or understand the local customs. It could be overwhelming.
Absolutely. Even something as simple as asking for directions can become a cross-cultural encounter. But, it's also in those moments of potential friction that something really interesting happens.
You mean like people finding common ground, bridging those differences?
Exactly. It's not always easy, but that constant interaction with different ways of life, it forces you to confront your own assumptions and to find new ways of communicating, of connecting with people who are different from you.
It's like that saying, the melting pot, but maybe not always melting so smoothly, right?
Like the simmering pot of energy and tension. But that's what gives New York its dynamism, its constant state of flux.
Speaking of energy, we can't talk about New York without mentioning its relentless pace, the city that never sleeps, right?
It's true. I mean, where else can you get a bagel at 3 in the morning?
Right. That detail from one of the articles about someone grabbing a bagel at 3 a.m., it really stuck with me.
It's a perfect example of this always-on mentality, but it makes you wonder, is it sustainable? Is there a downside to this constant hustle?
That's something to consider for sure. The potential for burnout, the pressure to always be on, it's real.
And it's not just about work, either. Even leisure time becomes another thing to check off the list, another opportunity to prove you're keeping up with the city's rhythm.
It's like that fear of missing out, FOMO. It's almost amplified in a place like New York City.
And that constant stimulation, the sheer density of people and experiences, it can be exhilarating but also incredibly draining.
It makes you wonder, what are the trade-offs? What gets lost in this pursuit of more, more, more?
That's a question for all of us to ponder. What are our priorities? How do we find balance in a world that seems to value constant motion?
Big questions. But before we spiral into an existential crisis, let's switch gears a bit and talk about something a little lighter. Landmarks.
Ah, yes. From the iconic Empire State Building to the whispering arches of Grand Central Station, New York City has no shortage of architectural marvels.
Totally. But we're going deeper than just the postcard views. Like, we all know about the Statue of Liberty, but one of the articles you shared talked about Ellis Island.
Ellis Island. It's a powerful reminder that behind the grandeur of Lady Liberty, there are countless human stories, millions of journeys filled with hope, uncertainty, and the desire for a better life.
It's crazy to think about all those immigrants who passed through that island, their first glimpse of this new world. It gives me chills just thinking about it.
It really highlights the fact that New York's identity is inextricably linked to the immigrant experience.
It's like this one tiny island holds the weight of so much history, so much emotion.
Speaking of identities, did you know that New York City has over 900 religious institutions?
900, seriously.
Churches, synagogues, mosques, temples. It's a testament to the city's incredible religious diversity as well.
Wow. It's like the ultimate expression of that idea of New York as a microcosm of the world, right?
Yeah.
All these different faiths, cultures, beliefs coexisting in this one place.
Exactly. And, it's not always harmonious. There are bound to be clashes, disagreements, even conflicts when you have so many different perspectives coming together.
Right, like we were saying earlier, that simmering pot.
Exactly. But, It's often in those moments of friction that we find the greatest opportunities for growth and understanding.
It's that push and pull, that constant tension that makes New York so unique. But that's a whole other conversation, and we're just getting started. Thinking about all those different cultures and faiths, it makes you realize how much energy there is in New York City.
Oh, absolutely. It's palpable. You
Yeah.
can just feel it in the air, that buzz.
Yeah, it's like the city itself has this invisible pulse that you can't escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it gets into you.
One of the articles described it as an urban symphony. Like
Yeah.
all those sounds, the subway, the taxis, all those conversations, it's all part of it.
And just like a symphony, it has moments of harmony and dissonance. So it's this fascinating, kind of chaotic, but also beautiful composition.
Totally. And living in that kind of environment, it's got to shape you, right? It's like you're not just living in New York, you're adapting to it.
It's true. From a sociological perspective, it's fascinating how this environment really shapes your behavior, just the density of it all, the stimulation.
Yeah. It's like you got to develop this New York attitude just to survive.
It's true. And a lot of it is born out of necessity. Everyone around you is striving and kind of pushing for their piece of the pie. You're going to learn to stand your ground pretty quickly.
It's that work hard, play hard
Mm.
mentality, right? Which is interesting because we talked about this city that never sleeps, but it seems like that mentality, that work hard, play hard, it goes beyond just work, doesn't it?
It bleeds into every part of life in New York,
It's true.
from careers to social lives, yeah.
It's like even leisure time becomes like another item on your to-do list, another way to prove that you're doing New York right.
Oh, I know. And then there's that fear of missing out
Oh yeah, the FOMO is real,
all the time.
especially in a city with endless possibilities.
Yes, exactly. So it's exhilarating, but it can also be exhausting.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance somewhere.
Right. Like, how do you find those quiet moments of reflection when you're surrounded by all the stimulation all the time?
It makes you wonder, what are the trade-offs of that lifestyle? What are you giving up to experience all that New York has to offer?
Well, that's a question for each person to answer, I think. What are your priorities? What are you willing to sacrifice?
Right. It's about figuring out what truly matters to you.
Absolutely.
Something that really struck me from the materials you shared was this sense of possibility that New York seems to embody.
The city of dreams, right?
Exactly. Like anything is possible there.
And for many people, it is.
Yeah.
They come to New York with nothing and they make something of themselves. It's pretty incredible.
It's true. But it also makes you wonder, how accessible is that dream, really? I mean, we've talked about the cost of living, the pressure to succeed. It seems like you need a certain level of, well, privilege to even attempt it, don't you think?
That's a great point. I think New York can be a difficult place if you don't have a safety net.
Right.
It can be incredibly unforgiving.
For sure.
If you come here with
Yeah.
nothing and you don't have that support system, it can be a very, very difficult experience.
It's like this paradox, right? The city that holds so much promise, so much potential, but it also has this other side, this harsh reality that not everyone can overcome.
Exactly. And that's the thing about New York City. It's a city of contradictions.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you guessing. It's like you said, a city of contradictions. You have these incredible highs, these moments where you feel like you're on top of the world, and then there are these lows that can really knock you down.
It's true. New York definitely puts you through the ringer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what leaves a more lasting impression on people, though. Is it those moments of triumph, of making it in the big city, or those times when you're faced with the challenges, the struggles?
That's a tough one. I think it's probably different for everyone, but, maybe that's what makes it so compelling. You're constantly being tested, pushed to your limits.
Right, like we were talking about earlier, adapting to survive.
Exactly. And in the process, you discover things about yourself that you never knew.
Totally. So we've covered a lot of ground here, the diversity, the pace of life, the pressure, the dreams, the struggles. What's the takeaway? What's the lasting impact of experiencing a place like New York City?
Well, I don't think there's one simple answer. It's a complex place, right?
Right.
And everyone's experience is unique, but I think it stays with you.
Yeah.
It gets under your skin and it changes your perspective, even if you don't realize it at the time.
It's like that energy we were talking about earlier, it never really leaves you.
Maybe not. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Those experiences, the challenges, they shape us.
Totally. Well, that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into New York City. Hopefully this has given you a lot to think about. Not just about the city itself, but also about the forces that shape urban life, the complexities of human interaction, and that enduring power of place.
Absolutely. It's a microcosm of so many things.
It is. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep those fascinating deep dives coming.